It all starts when I was 7 years old in Abilene, Texas. And I'm laying on the bed in my room, looking out the window that is directly up, just directly like this. So I'm looking out the window, and there's this big moon out there that night. And I'm sitting there thinking, I'm saying my prayers, and I remember saying to God, "Oh God, I'll do whatever your will is for me. Just don't ask me to be a preacher." I was a Baptist, and about the only thing I knew of anybody that was a minister was a Baptist preacher. And so that was the last thing in the world that I wanted to do. I'm not real sure why, but that was my prayer. And the interesting thing is that was a prayer that was always sort of on the front of my mind. Don't ask me to be a preacher. I don't want to do that. I had this prayer on my lips of, don't ask me to be a preacher, yet I also, at the same time, in my mind's eye, I could see myself preaching. I don't understand it. I don't get it. That's just the way it was. I guess when we have that idea of Psalm 108 says, I created you in your mother's womb, and I have a purpose for you. I guess God had that purpose for me, and it was a part that was in here, but yet had not completely filtered up here. And that was 7 years old. So the next 33 years of my life would be a struggle with that battle, that constant conflict in my mind. It came to an interesting head when I, like a lot of kids at 17 years old, I got my keys to the car, and I kind of checked out of religion, particularly after I went to college. Yet at the same time, I strangely missed it. I worked Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays while I was in college throwing bags on airplanes. And so I couldn't go to church, and I missed it. And when I made this vow, I said, Lord, whenever I get out of college and I get a job, and I have my weekends off, I'll go back to church. God sustained me through that time of college, thank goodness, and because I needed it. I needed a lot of supernatural grace during that period of my life. But what ended up happening is about a year after that, after I got out of college, I started back into going to church again. And I was telling my friend, I said, I'm interested in going back to church. He said, but I don't know, I want to kind of look at some different denominations. I grew up Baptist, and he said, well, right down the street here, there's a place called St. Albans, right down from, right next to the college campus, in fact. I still lived in the area, and he was still in college, and he says, I understand there's a new priest there, and they have an inquirer's class. I said, well, I'll go check it out. So I walked in to the first night to the inquirer's class, and I sit down, and there's about 20 people, and Father Moore starts talking about the class, and I just was really taken in. I'd never heard anything quite like this before, and after the class was over, I walked up to him and I said, how does somebody become a priest in this church? And Father Moore looked at me and says, well, first, tell me who you are. Because that was the first time I'd ever walked, I literally just, it was the first time I ever walked into that facility at all. Not even the church. Never even seen me before in my life. So I walked in that day, and I remember him sort of describing it to me, but it all went completely over my head because there were words like aspirant and candidate and commission on ministry, things that I can vaguely remember and thinking, I don't get it. So, but I knew that I really liked what I had experienced, and I kept coming back. I had some maturing to do. After I got out of college, I thought I was still in a fraternity. I was working in a restaurant, and waiting tables were Father Moore showed up. I was working, and he showed up, and he sat in my section with he and his wife, and he sat down, and he said, you know, you really should be in Mass on Sundays. Oh, okay. So I did that. So I walked in, and I'll never forget seeing, you know, people kneeling and praying. And I walked in, they were kneeling down on the kneelers in their pews, and they were praying. And there was this big, beautiful stone altar in the front, and there was a crucifix, and there was, you know, liturgy and ceremony and a sermon or a homily like I'd never heard before. It had a different style to it. And I just kind of said, I got to figure this out. And so I immediately ran away. You know how God sends Jonah to Nineveh, which is this way, and instead he runs to Tarshish, which is that way. Well, that's what happened to me. I ran that way when I was being called this way. And, but I still was I was always conflicted, but my true desire, at least as when I had, God has always blessed me. It's been amazing. I had some professional goals that I had. One of them was that I wanted to work in advertising. The other was that I wanted to I wanted to work for a national consumer products company in their marketing department. And then another was that I wanted an office in a big office building, and a windowed office in a big office building in the downtown. And God gave me every single one of those things, and it's just amazing. And then one day, one of my managers called me up, and so we met for lunch, and he said, we have a position open that's just open. It's in between the New York marketing department and field sales. It's an in-field marketing position. You have experience in sales and marketing and advertising. This is perfect for you. I was like, really? Yeah. So I got this nice little promotion. I went into the regional office, and I did working with Nielsen shares, and I worked sales analysis, and I helped the regional manager in his work, manage the business of the region. And they tripled my salary. So I was making really good money. And so I'm doing exactly what I wanted to do, and God had given me every one of my dreams so far. The corporate office with a window over downtown, working in advertising, marketing with a consumer products company with the brands. One day I remember saying to myself, I can't do this forever. And I don't know why I said that, but I didn't, but a part of me knew that I was not happy. And I knew that from that moment on, it took every ounce of my effort to be average at what I was doing. Every ounce of my effort just to be average, and I didn't like that. I was personally offended by it. I soon realized that I can't keep doing this. You know, I was very conflicted, and I said, well, what else would you want to do? And I looked at the company. I was making really good money. I had lots of friends in my parish. My family was there. I had my own house. I got to looking through the company, and there was not a single, so there's not a job in this whole company that I have any interest in doing. As time went on, that burden became more and greater and greater and greater. And it began to weigh on me with a great deal of anxiety. So much that I got sick and I lost, I weighed about 50 pounds less than I do now, I'll put it that way. And I was anxious. I didn't know what I was going to do with my life. It's like, I said, I can only do this about 3 more years, and then I have no idea. And sure enough, it was almost exactly 3 years to the day that I left that job. And I thought, well, I'm going to start an own business. I'm going to go back to my creative side, and I had some ideas. One that I've been working on and preparing for and working with people. And that wasn't it. And I spent the next probably about 6 months trying to figure out what I was going to do. In the meantime, I'd gone with the priest at the Episcopal church I went to the diocese, and you know, I filled out all the paperwork to become what's called an aspirant. for holy orders. And I got to a certain point, I just stopped. I just put everything on hold. And I couldn't bring myself to keep going. I was trying to figure out what to do, and one day, there were two things that happened. One was, my brother was a football coach, and years ago, some kid had ordered a letter jacket and graduated and never picked it up. And he gave it to me and said, here, take this. It's a brand new jacket, had a big WH on it, these awful colors. It had yellow and green. Use that to go fishing in or work on my car in when it's cold or something like that. And one day I said, I don't need this. On Friday nights I would go and work at the homeless shelter, and so I took it with me and gave it away. And I'm having this real conflict of faith, this great anxiety about what I'm going to do with my life. I finally I was kind of getting to a breaking point. I mean, not mentally, but just kind of emotionally though. I was driving down this big street. It's 5 lanes, and I've been fighting with this whole thing, and I've been saying, these people, they keep coming back, and the poor keep coming back. And really, what sort of difference are we making? What sort of problems are we really solving in here? I was very, very frustrated by it. I was driving down that street and I said, does any of this, none of this makes a difference. And I was actually kind of pounding on the steering wheel, crying. And I said, none of this makes a difference. What does this all matter? This is all bovine excrement, And about the time I looked up, and people don't walk in those big metroplex suburbs. People don't walk in suburbs. But there's this guy walking down the street with this golden yellow, brand new jacket on in Western Hills right here, across here. And I went, I guess it does make a difference. It was a cold day, and this is all that he would have had, But here he is, this brand new jacket. I know where the jacket came from. It was the jacket that I gave about 2 weeks ago. And here some man was warm because I did what Jesus told me to do. Not my credit, but the next thing that happened was actually pretty amazing. 5 months after that, I'm really warm. In fact, I started the process again after that. And I'd gone and I'd interviewed with some people and had a meeting with this committee, the Commission on Ministry. I'm still in this sort of conflicted about being called, and I'm saying, I don't have the ability to do this. There's no way I could get a master's degree. There's no way that I could preach. There's no way I could really, pastorally, care for people. There's, I'm a terrible administrator, which I am. I give up. And I said, okay, God, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to tell you. I'm going to get my teaching degree and teach literature for high school literature, and that's what I'm going to do. If you want me to go to seminary, you're going to have to find a way to tell me. And I thought, what's he going to do? Write it in the clouds? Go to seminary. So that was on a Sunday. Monday, I get a call from a guy who'd just been ordained on Saturday. The first thing he did Monday morning was call me up and say, hey, Russ. He said, let's go to lunch on Wednesday. Okay. So we go to lunch. I don't know what it's about. We sit down and he takes me to this cafeteria, which is all you can eat for $4.99. I mean, I had 2 trays of food. And we finally work our way through it. And he says, you got to go to seminary. I said, yeah. No, I said, I put that behind me. He said, no, you got to go. I said, no, seriously. I said, who have you been talking? Because I'm thinking, hey, he's been talking to, there's people knew that I've been sort of struggling with this. I said, who have you been talking to? He said, nobody. I've only been here 1 day. He said, God told me that you need to go to seminary. Right. I kind of laughed and everything. I said, how did God tell you that I have to go to seminary? He said, well, And remember, this is the 1st of June. He says, remember back in January, in fact, it was probably close to that same weekend that I had that experience with the green and gold jacket. He said, remember how I came and was visiting, interviewing for this job during my senior year in seminary? I go, yeah, I remember when you came. He goes, I went to your Sunday school class, right? I go, yeah. He said, while I was there, God put it on my heart. You have to tell that guy he has to go to seminary. I'm like, right. You're funny. And so I blew him off. It should be kind of plain to see, right? But no, I'm pretty dense at this time, and I'm saying, yeah, right. We get done, we talk about a million different things, and we walk out, and we're saying goodbye, and it's a beautiful June day, and the sky is just robin's egg blue, and there's these big, puffy, steamy clouds just all over, and I'm looking up, and I see the sun shining just right down on us in early June in Texas. And I think, oh, the sunshine, the S-O-N, sunshine. And then I think about the comment, what is he going to do, write it in the clouds? And then I put it all together at that moment. And I went home and slept for about 5 hours like I hadn't slept in 3 years. And all I asked him to do was just say, if you wanted me to go to seminary, that's all I was doing. I don't want to know anymore else. Just want me to go to seminary, And that's exactly what the guy said. He didn't say, you're called to the priesthood. He didn't say, you're called to the diaconate. He said, you have to go to seminary. That was the exact wording that he said to me, and that was the exact challenge I put to God. So, I finished all my, I was doing, working temporary for a company, and not temporary, I was working about 35 hours a week for this company, and I let them know what I was going to do, and seminary was wonderful. It changed my life. All the questions I ever had about God, about faith, is this a God that I can really depend upon? Is all this stuff made up? Is God real? I knew those on a scale of 1 to 10. I knew those answers. I believed them with a 2, but when I got out of seminary, I believed them with a 10. And if you wonder why I teach so much, that's why I do. Because I'm teaching you things that I have learned that have formed me to be the person that I am, the person of faith that I am. And so that's what I do. And I went through 2.5 years. My senior year in seminary, after the 3rd year, I had to take my canonical exams to be ordained, and there was 4 days of oral and written exams. It's pretty grueling, and I passed, and I came back. And so now all I really had to do, I knew I was going to graduate. That wasn't a question. So I knew I'd done what God had asked me to do. I'd gone to seminary, and my question was now, do you want me to be ordained? That's all it was. Do you want me to be ordained? And because I thought that's what I wanted. I thought that's what I wanted, but I was sick of doing what I wanted. I wanted to do what God wanted. I said, do you want me to be ordained? So my first morning back from my Christmas break, when I'd taken my exams, I got back there. The first thing we had to do was say what's called a dry mass, which means you say mass with a piece of bread and water, as if, it's not a real mass and you're not ordained, it wouldn't matter anyway, but they call it a dry mass. And so I walk in and I have a 10 o'clock appointment with my professor to say dry mass, my liturgics professor. I've been practicing and everything, and I go in and I go up ahead of time and I set the altar up and just get all the readings and everything. You do an entire mass by yourself. And they sit there and grade you. And I walked in and I could smell incense. It's not usual because we use incense just about every day in this seminary. it'd been 5 weeks since they'd had services in the main chapel during the winter break, the Christmas break. They have them in a small, very small, like 10-person chapel. And I'm smelling, why? Where's the incense? And I go and check in the we call it the smoke room where they keep all the, and I couldn't smell anything there. And I'm setting up and I keep looking around. Where's that coming from? Father Michael shows up. I do my dry mass. He says a few nice things and then a few criticism, and then he leaves. And I'm putting everything up. And I'm walking out and I'm still smelling it. And as I'm walking down the cloister down to my, back to my room, I think, yeah, I smelled incense, but it was just the fragrance. It wasn't the burning part of incense, okay? Because fragrance, incense is a resin that is impregnated, blended with fragrance. And then when you burn the resin on the hot coals, the resin burns, but it releases fragrance. Well, there was no burn smell. There were no coals that had been burning. There was no resin that had, it was all just, and usually the burn smell will linger longer than the incense, but they're kind of both. But it was pure fragrance. And at that point I said, okay, there's my answer. I walked in to say Mass, and my dry Mass, and it was, God's benediction was there. By His presence and blessing was there in what I was doing. So.